For Team Kiewit's productivity improvement study, we decided to analyze the new building that is being constructed in the six-pack. Wausau Hall is located at the corner of First and Gregory, and construction is expected to be complete by next fall so students can move into the dorm. In our productivity improvement study, we noticed 3 things that could be changed in order to maximize the productivity of the site. These 3 factors are improving mobilization and material drop-off, removing idle equipment, and expanding and closing the fence. With these improvements, productivity will go up and the project will save roughly $90,000.
Construction activity we observed was making a brick path. All the bricks were already placed, they were just filling in the spaces in between the bricks with sand. The process, which can be seen in Figure 1, involves a flat steel tool to scrape the sand back and forth in order to get the sand deep in the cracks. This prevents the bricks from moving around in the future. Another construction activity we observed was a wooden frame for a cement wall. The wooden frame was being placed in an excavated area that was about 3 feet deep. The frame was being constructed with individual slabs that were connected by wooden stakes and nails. 2 steel rods were connecting the frame to the subgrade in order to give additional support for when the concrete is actually poured. The last activity we observed was the construction of a concrete sidewalk. Workers were moving around the cement with shovels in order to spread it out evenly. They were also using a concrete finisher to make the top layer smooth.
The conditions for the residence hall construction site were overall tidy and well organized. In the southeast corner of the site, we saw a very clean, clear workspace, as seen in Figure 1, a screenshot from our video. Also, the material and supplies were stockpiled in the corner in an organized fashion with a clear path to and from them. This is seen in Figure 2. The site conditions in the northeast corner were also pretty organized and clean, as seen in Figure 1. The only thing we noticed were a few 2x4s out of place, which could cause a safety issue, and some garbage laying around. There is also a cleared path in and out for transfer materials, machinery, and people. Last, the excavated area was safely braced. However, it lacked clear markings to let other people identify it easily, which could be a safety concern. This is seen in Figure 2. Taking a look at the overall site, we can see how the original transportation and storage area was set up on the left and how it currently is set up on the right. The reason for the change is because now there are concrete sidewalks and obstacles in the way of the old route, and a new route had to be made.
The objective of a crew balance sheet is to measure the productivity of a crew during a certain time interval. This is done utilizing a bar chart and observing at what moments a given worker is working or is idle. For our group, we did a crew balance for a crew of 5 workers laying sand in the cracks of a new brick pavement. The crew consisted of 1 bobcat operator, 1 wheelbarrow worker, 2 sweepers, and 1 leaf blower. The most productive worker was the leaf blower, who was never idle for the full 5 minutes. That being said, he probably had the easiest job. The bobcat operator and wheelbarrow worker worked hand in hand. If one of the workers was delayed during their cycle, the other was forced to be idle. The crew balance chart is a very useful way to look back and see how productive each worker was at any given moment.
A process chart is a sequenced list of action items which demonstrates the procedure of a particular work cycle. Each item has a symbol associated with it in order to characterize the nature of the action. There are 5 types of symbols. A circle indicates an operation being done in a specific place. An arrow indicates the transportation of a material or piece of equipment. A square indicates checking or inspection. A half circle indicates a temporary delay or holdup. A triangle indicates the storage of a material or piece of equipment. Next to each action item is a brief description of what transpires during that period. Process charts make it easy to understand all the actions that go into a process. Included is an example of a process chart which we drew that outlines the procedure for spreading sand across a brick surface. A flow diagram, usually paired with a process chart, is a more visual representation of the sequence of action items in a particular work cycle. Flow diagrams are characterized by a series of action items represented by captions or labels that are clearly connected by a series of arrows which indicate the order. Accompanied with these captions and arrows are visual aids that illustrate the type of action being done. The purpose of including a flow diagram with a process chart is to provide an illustration in order to help visualize the actions being done, as well as the space, equipment, materials, and labor necessary for the job. Included is an example of a flow diagram that we drew for the same sand spreading process.
For the analysis of existing operations and problems, we analyzed crews working on both the north and the south sides of the site, and we began observing them at roughly 11 a.m. On the north, they were placing cement in the curb line. They were finishing that cement. There was a carpenter stripping forms from a previous pour, and they were unloading supplies off a delivery truck. On the south side, they were cutting and placing brick next to the curb line. They were compacting the placed brick. They were placing sand on top of the brick, and they were transporting sand and gravel using a skid steer and a wheelbarrow. They were also placing and finishing cement. We conducted 2 5-minute ratings, and the north, the observations gave us a rating of 57%. In the south, they gave us a rating of 67.5%. This gave the crews an overall rating of 62.25%, which is actually very good. And this has to be taken with a grain of salt, however, because even though they were working, they may not have been working as productively as they could have been. We noticed 3 main issues in our observations. There was poor placement of gravel and dirt for the south side operation. This led to long travel times, and that made them use a skid steer and a wheelbarrow to bring the materials for the brick operation. And then this led to a significant amount of machine idle time because they only used the machines for a fraction of the time when they were working on the bricks. And then third, the fence on the north side had too large of an entrance. This could lead to students and people wandering onto the site at night, or in general, it's just unsafe. Also, there was the transportation of the cement was using public walkway, which was very unsafe. Other small issues were workers seen smoking cigarettes while working on the campus property, and there was another worker seen talking on the cell phone while working for an extended amount of time.
The first of our proposed improvements was to change the material drop-off locations. The current locations of some materials were not economical for the processes in which they were being used. By moving the materials closer to where they were needed, travel time would be reduced and therefore productivity would increase. On the southern side of the job site, there were dirt and gravel piles placed quite far away from the area in which they were being used. This led to mobilization using a front loader, as can be seen in this picture. After the dirt was mobilized, it was shoveled into a wheelbarrow. In addition to the wheelbarrow operator and the front loader operator, there were also 3 people constantly spreading the dirt being mobilized. We believe that the use of the front loader in this situation could be eliminated altogether. By dropping off the dirt and gravel piles closer to the building, the material could be directly shoveled into the wheelbarrow, so not only do you get rid of the rental cost of the front loader, but you also acquire a crew member to assist with the spreading of the dirt. Though adding another spreader would not decrease the process time, it would definitely decrease the time of the project as a whole. A similar instance on the northern side of the job site was present with the bricks that they were going to be laying. The bricks were located a good 50 yards from where they were going to need them. Again, we proposed dropping off the material closer to the place of use. An example of this could be seen on the southern side of the job site, where the bricks were located right next to where the workers were laying them.
Our second proposed improvement is to remove idle equipment from the job site. There are multiple pieces of equipment on site that are not being used. If the equipment is being rented, sitting idly on the job site is directly costing the company money that could be saved simply by ending the lease. If the equipment is needed for additional work in the short term, the schedule should be revised such that the work requiring the equipment is close together and minimizes the time that the equipment is idle. The same philosophy should be followed if the equipment is owned by the company. While there isn't a direct renting cost to the equipment if it is owned, idle equipment is still costing the company money as it could be undergoing maintenance or being used on another project. There are two distinct pieces of equipment idle on the site while we observed it. The first is the lift shown in the picture here. The lift was idle during the entirety of our observation, and the work being done at the moment did not seem like anything that would require the lift. In addition, the lift was blocking a primary route within the job site and was forcing equipment and personnel to leave the site and walk around the fenced area on the pedestrian sidewalk. This poses a major safety issue and is another reason the lift should be removed from the site. The second piece of equipment was the mini loader shown here. This loader was completely idle during our observation period and simply sat in the middle of the construction site unused. There are a couple of minor jobs that the loader may have been useful for example, helping move the dirt that the full-size loader was moving, as is shown earlier in the presentation. But overall, it seemed as it would be best to simply remove it from the site, as it didn't seem to be serving any purpose at the moment.
While observing the job site, we noticed that there was a very large gap in the fence on the northern end of the job site. This gap spanned roughly 30 yards, which is quite excessive. The gap greatly exposed the project to the public. The large gap in the fence can be seen here. The opening is located on a public walkway that students use walking to and from their dorms. While walking in this open gated area, students are less than 10 feet away from the site operations without vests or hard hats. This should be a huge safety concern for the contractor. Part of the reason that we believe the fence opening is so long is the idle orange lift that we have mentioned previously. By blocking the on-site walkway, this lift required workers and equipment to travel outside of the fence, off-site, and on students' walking path. This can be seen in this picture. This causes even more of a danger. We propose that the fence be closed off much more. Though this may decrease productivity in the slightest, safety should always be the main concern. We also propose that the contractor could extend the job site and have the fence encompass the entire walkway. By doing this, you would increase productivity with more room to move around, and you would decrease the safety concerns for the pedestrians walking by. Though the students may have to walk a couple of extra minutes around the building, it is a small price to pay for their safety.
To implement this proposal, adjustments must be made in terms of where the dirt and gravel are being dumped and who is transporting these materials. This change must be communicated to all members of the crew, since this will change the number of workers involved in the process and the paths that they will be walking in. To ensure that productivity remains high, workers should adjust their walking paths and the direction in which they are spreading the gravel. The worker who was originally operating the front loader will now help spread the gravel, further increasing the productivity of the crew. On a daily basis, this will result in savings of $555 per day, and over the course of the project, up to $48,000 in savings. If the idle lift was removed from the site, the currently obstructed walkway would open up, and this would allow construction workers and equipment to remain on the site rather than creating safety hazards by having to go around the fence on the outside of the site. In addition to the safety benefits, productivity would increase with the crew able to take a more direct path between different areas of the site. By removing the idle small front loader, the site would become less cluttered, which can lead to higher productivity. There are also cost benefits associated with removing the idle equipment from the site, and it's estimated that this would save up to $43,000 throughout the course of the rest of the project. Ideally, the fence addition should be installed as soon as possible to close off the gap on the northern end of the site. Because there is heavy foot traffic in that area, it's a risk for the construction company, for students and other pedestrians to walk into the site. And safety always needs to be the number one priority. It would lead to increased productivity as it would prevent any trespassing on the site. And it's estimated that this would cost about $540 to rent the fence for the rest of the project and would only take about a day to install. To conclude, the Wasatch Hall construction site is a safe and efficient work site, but we see room for improvement in the mobilization, the idle equipment, and the fencing. Our proposed improvements could save Turner roughly $90,000. Thanks for watching.